There was something buried in Nintendo's Q&A last week for investors that I feel not many people have really been talking about, and to me, it's really exciting as someone who loves physical media because it seems to suggest that for the foreseeable future, Nintendo will continue supporting physical media. That really can't be said for the other major publishers. A lot of publishers, we see them moving to digital-only releases. We see Xbox and PlayStation releasing digital-only consoles. It feels like Nintendo might be the odd man out in regards to this, and that's very good news to me. So today, let's talk about all of that and more. Of course, subscribe here if you are new to the channel. Let's get into this. Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games. Today, I wanted to discuss something the president of Nintendo, Shuntaro Furukawa, said during their investor Q&A last week. He was asked about the growth of digital sales on Nintendo platforms and how that number keeps going up and up as people get more comfortable buying digital games. And one of the things he said in regards to that question was this, quote, "Our objective is not to simply increase the share of digital sales, but to maximize overall game software sales, including sales of physical software. This policy will remain unchanged going forward," which on the surface, like, that's kind of just like, yeah, of course they want to maximize sales going forward across the board, but when you look at how other companies have been acting, particularly Xbox, to a lesser degree PlayStation, but even some third parties like Epic Games with Alan Wake 2, and Sega with that Yakuza Like a Dragon guiding game, we're seeing such a big push from all of those other different parties to just only do digital. They want the digital future as fast as possible, and it seems like Nintendo is the odd man out here, which is just very exciting to me as someone who loves physical media. I like collecting games, I like owning my games, and one thing that is particularly nice about the Switch is that the games are actually on the cartridge. There are a few cases, like I think the Borderlands collection or like the Mega Man Legacy collections, where you get a download code and you have to download part of it, but for the most part, the entire game, especially from Nintendo's first party, for the most part, their games are always content complete on the cartridge, so even if you don't have access to the internet, you'll own that game in perpetuity and it'll be the finalized version of it. That isn't the case for a lot of PlayStation games and a lot of Xbox games. I think some publishers have gotten a little bit better recently. Like I think recently Square Enix shipped 7 Rebirth on PS5 on 2 discs just to make sure that it was all on the disc, which is very cool. I love seeing that. Actually, just this morning as I'm recording, Ubisoft announced that Assassin's Creed Shadows will actually ship on 2 discs on the Xbox versions of that game, which is pretty cool. Very out of character for Ubisoft, but it really is Nintendo that has always supported physical media, I feel like, more than the other big companies, which is just really nice to see. I love what they've done over the past couple of years with the Switch, specifically, in that it almost feels like they've gotten more away from digital as time has gone on. You look back to like the 3DS and the Wii U, there was just a lot of digital-only games from Nintendo. Even something like Fatal Frame on the Wii U in North America, that didn't get a physical release. Different circumstances, Wii U selling very poorly. I believe if Nintendo were to publish that game right now, it would have gotten a physical release everywhere. But a lot of their smaller scale stuff, their re-releases, like Pikmin 1 and 2 last year is something I would have never thought would get a physical release. Any other publisher would have just released that digitally and called it a day, and I would have bought it because I wanted to play Pikmin 1 and 2 on my Switch, but the fact that it did get a physical release, these very bare bones ports of GameCube games, getting them on a cartridge for the Switch, I just think is really cool as a collector, but also as a fan of this game and wanting to own this game. I think that's awesome. Prime Remastered, similar thing there. Kind of surprised that got a physical, even if it was after the digital release. Bayonetta Origins, something small scale, something very niche. That probably could have been a digital-only game. Even something like Tetris 99 getting a physical release. Even this Nintendo World Championships game that's coming out in July. Even these things getting physical releases is just so unlike any other company right now that is publishing games. And it's one of the reasons I like Nintendo so much, because I'm not opposed to buying a digital game. Like, I'll buy a game digitally if I have to, and even sometimes just for the ease of access. Like, when I buy Call of Duty every year, yeah, I buy it digitally just because I'm going to be playing that game all year long. I don't want to keep switching the disc. But for a lot of these single-player games, which is what Nintendo is most well known for, yeah, I want to own a physical copy. But this quote from Furukawa about their policy for physical games remaining unchanged moving forward, that to me reads as they understand, like they get it. Whereas Epic Games isn't releasing Alan Wake 2 physically, and Sega is only releasing Like a Dragon Gaiden physically in like some very select Asian regions, Nintendo understands that a large portion of their player base enjoys physical media and enjoys collecting it. I think Nintendo understands that they have a lot of collectors as fans. I mean, you look at collections for the other platforms and you're like, yeah, people collect Series X games, kind of, and people collect PlayStation more than that, certainly. but Nintendo has cultivated a very collector-brained audience, for better or for worse. It kind of offers them a little bit of chance to get some FOMO going on. We're seeing that kind of with this upcoming Nintendo World Championships game, where I'm not sure if it'll be a FOMO scenario, I don't know if it'll be limited, who knows, but they understand that people like these collector's items. They like having that physical cartridge, but also they like having collector's editions. Most major Nintendo games get a really cool special edition, and I like that a lot. This quote also confirms something else. Now, we had heard as well from this investor meeting that Nintendo account stuff will carry over to the Switch 2. They have not specifically said, like, yes, Switch 2 will be backwards compatible. They haven't confirmed that, but you can kind of read between the tea leaves and figure out, yeah, it's going to be carrying over your account. You're going to be able to download all your stuff. I think that is a very safe assumption to make, although it is not confirmed. But I would say this quote about their policy for physical media remaining unchanged certainly confirms that there will be physical media, which to some that sounds like, yeah, no brainer, no duh. However, I have seen some people in my comments specifically being like, yeah, I could see the Switch 2 being digital only. I would say this certainly confirms that that is not going to be the case. And considering we won't even see this console until at least 2025 at this point, that's a full 8 years on the market for the current Switch. I think the Switch 2 maybe won't last quite that long, but let's say it lasts 7 or 8 years. That means Nintendo, unless they just drop off mid-generation, that means Nintendo for at least 7 or 8 more years after 2025 will be making physical games, which puts us into the 2030s. We already know that Xbox was planning on releasing that Project Brooklyn Series X revision this year. Who knows if plans have changed? That was in the FTC leak last year. It's certainly possible that that ended up getting shifted around, but they were planning on releasing a digital-only Series X, the adorably all-digital Series X. And considering how Game Pass has affected that ecosystem, I think it's safe to say that the Series X probably was the final Xbox console that will actually ship with a disk drive. PlayStation has been a bit better about physical media, in my opinion. It seems like the PS5 with a disk drive is the most stocked version. That might just be because they realize they can get a little bit more money out of the hardware that way, because, yeah, a lot of people on PlayStation aren't buying physical games, but you can still just get them to buy the physical one anyway. And then, yeah, you're selling digital games anyway, but you're getting a little bit more money on that hardware because I doubt the disc drive really costs that much. But even just considering that they made a digital-only console, I think it's relatively safe to say that the PS6 and the next Xbox, they probably won't have disc drives. At least I'm not expecting it. If they do, maybe it'll be a completely optional accessory just for backwards compatible games. I mean, I know we are currently seeing with the PS5, with the Slim version, you can buy a disc drive. For if you buy like the digital only PS5, you can buy a disc drive and kind of install it that way. I'm not personally expecting the PS6 to even have physical games though. With how skewed it is in favor of digital sales for PlayStation and especially Xbox, I think the current generation for those two will be the final stop along the road for physical media. Whereas with Nintendo, we're going to be going into the 2030s with physical games from Nintendo, which I just think is really exciting to see. Beyond that, I'm not the most confident. I think eventually Nintendo might buckle and just be like, okay, well, we're making so much more profit on digital games now that it won't really be necessary to release physical games. But knowing we'll have physical games from Nintendo for likely the next 10 or so years is very reassuring, because it just feels like over the past like 3 or so years, it's just been going downhill so rapidly for physical media, for collectors. We see all of these retailers getting rid of, not their video game sections, but we see them getting rid of Blu-rays and 4Ks and stuff. We see, I think Walmart, it was rumored they're getting rid of Xbox games soon. We are entering that digital age faster than we ever have been before, so to see Nintendo reaffirm support for physical media is just really exciting to me. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts down below. How do you buy your Switch games? Once again, I'm not one of those purists that's like totally against digital games. I will buy a digital game from time to time, even if it has a physical version. Sometimes I just want the convenience of having it on my Switch or my PlayStation at all times. Don't have to swap cartridges or swap the disc. But also, I think having options is nothing but a good thing, so I hope we continue to see physical options for as long as possible. So let me know, which type of media do you prefer? Do you prefer buying your games physically? Do you prefer buying them digitally? And how do you feel about this quote from Furukawa that, in my opinion, pretty much solidifies that we'll be getting physical games from Nintendo for the next 10 years or so? Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch news, reviews, discussions, all of that fun stuff. Follow me on Twitter at BotoxGames, and until next time, folks, peace.